Hi, guys. Welcome to The Social Block, the podcast that explores the intersection between blockchain technology and society. Our topic today is all about staking, restaking, liquid staking, solo staking. You name it, we'll talk about it. Our guest is Mike Silagadze, CEO and founder of EtherFi. I know that's a name a lot of you know, so that makes it extra exciting for me today. One last thing before we get right into the episode with Mike. The Social Block is taking a little bit of a summer vacation this year, so look out for the next episode around September. And with that, let's get right into the episode. Hi, Mike. How are you doing?
Yeah, doing great. Yeah, great to be here.
Yeah, whereabouts are you?
So normally I'm based in the Cayman Islands. Right now I happen to be in the US, but normally I'm based in Cayman.
Right, nice. Is it warm where you are? It's really warm where I am, like so hot.
Yeah, it's pretty hot, especially Cayman. I mean, Cayman is about the same year round. It's usually about like 30 degrees and sunny every day.
So proper summer vibes. Nice.
Yeah, exactly.
I always ask my guests, the first thing I ask them is to kind of introduce themselves and give our listeners just a little bit of background on who they are, how they got where they are, and then we can like get into the nitty gritty of EtherFi.
Sure. Yeah. So my name is Mike Silagadze. I'm the founder and CEO of EtherFi. I guess where we're talking specifically about probably crypto and how I got to into working on EtherFi. So, I've been working in startups for years and years now. My first company I started out of undergrad in university, which was an education technology company that I ran for a while, and then exited in 2021. And then I switched gears and focused on EtherFi. But in parallel to my first company, I had been sort of dabbling and kind of playing around with crypto on the side for many years, since 2011, I think was when I first bought.
That's a while ago. Wait, did you keep the Bitcoin you bought?
Yeah.
Did you not sell
it back?
No,
I sold most of it.
Everybody does. It's this thing of like.
I mean, I bought into ETH pretty early. And I've kept that I've been holding on to.
Nice, yeah. The only thing I was fairly early on was Solana. Everything else, I'm just so late.
Nice.
Oh, nice. Where were we? You said that you were kind of doing things with crypto back in 2011.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I read the Bitcoin white paper, got very excited about.
What made you excited?
Just the idea of a stateless monetary system, I think was something that I felt was really appealing. Especially, I mean, this was right around the time of the great financial crisis, the first one, and even prior to that, things like inflation and government kind of manipulation of the money supply was something that I'd been thinking a lot about, and I thought was a major problem, kind of in general. So I felt like Bitcoin, pretty obviously represented a potential solution to that. Right? It was a potential monetary system that couldn't be manipulated, that couldn't be inflated away, that couldn't be seized and controlled. As a good libertarian, I felt that was something I was very passionate about.
So relatable. I feel the same way. I have like a problem with this unchecked centralization and kind of the road it's leading us down. So because EtherFi is so deeply embedded into like the staking, restaking like ecosystem, and we were going to get into all of that, I wanted to if you could start off by giving me and our listeners just like a little summary of Ethereum and proof of stake as it is now, like what that means, so that like people who don't have context will be able to follow the discussion later.
Sure. Yeah. Maybe I'll start with Bitcoin and how that how proof of stake sort of builds on that. Because most people are familiar with Bitcoin. The way the Bitcoin network works is you've got tens of thousands of computers all over the world. that are, very rapidly guessing random numbers. And every 10 minutes or so, a computer on the Bitcoin network guesses correctly and gets rewarded with, I think it's 5 Bitcoin these days. And so that mechanism allows this sort of random reward mechanism allows the first of all, a way to distribute Bitcoin to the ecosystem over a period of time, and it creates kind of an economic security mechanism because you have to pay for all of these computers to aggressively guess random numbers. So that's a very crude description of the proof of work system of Bitcoin. Ethereum started off as proof of work, but then migrated, I guess it's been about a year or two now, migrated into a proof of stake system. Proof of stake systems work differently than the Bitcoin mechanism. The way proof of stake works is you have to take a certain number of ETH tokens and lock them up, basically lock them in a smart contract on Ethereum in order to get the right to run a node, to run one of these computers that processes transactions on the Ethereum network. And you're putting those tokens, that the native token of the ecosystem, at stake. You're putting it at risk in exchange for getting to run one of these nodes. And then the reward for putting it at stake is that you get a share of the fees on the network. So it's sort of a skin in the game type of mechanism. So that's proof of stake. Now, there's a new kind of layer on top of that that's been introduced. It's been around for a little while, but it's been now labeled as restaking. And that's the idea that you take that same ETH that you have, put at stake in order to run a node on the Ethereum network to provide economic security for Ethereum. You're now able to enroll that same ETH to provide economic security to other crypto economic networks in exchange for rewards from those networks. So you can basically take your staked ETH and restake it across other services.
So quick question, how does that work? Like mechanically, because supposedly when you stake the Ethereum, it's supposed to be like you can't use it for other things. How is it liquid when it's staked so that it can be restaked?
Yeah, sorry. So liquid staking is, it's abstractions on abstractions, but normally when you take your ETH and you lock it in the smart contract in order to get the right to run a node on this network, you're locking that ETH and it's not available to you. So there are projects that have developed, Lido and Rocketpool were the first two, that give you a receipt token that is then tradable. So basically the protocol it serves as an intermediary to stake the ETH and then provides everybody with a receipt token that accrues those network rewards. So that's
another
staking.
Layer.
And liquid restaking is the same thing. It's a receipt token. It's there's duration risk on that receipt token in that you can redeem it for the underlying ETH, but it may, most of the time you can do that pretty much immediately, but it may be subject to some duration risk if there's lots of redemption demands that are coming in. And restaking and liquid restaking works, more or less the same way in that it is a receipt token that's subject to some duration risk that is then becomes tradable, within the Ethereum ecosystem.
Right. I have a question, but before that, I just want to say my mind was just kind of circling, going back to what you said about Bitcoin block rewards. I think you said it was like 5 BTC. Isn't it 3.12 something right now after the halving? We need to check this back. I think it's about 3.
Number. I thought it was 10.
No, I think it was 6.
I thought it was 10 and then it got cut down. So I don't know the exact
I think
number.
it's 3.1. Right. Sorry, that was just kind of in the back of my brain.
Got it.
Anyway, so from what we were saying about liquid staking and restaking, are they technically the same? Like just two different ways of saying the same thing? Or is there actually a fundamental difference?
You mean restaking specifically?
Yeah, like liquid staking and restaking, like what you just explained, because I got one concept out of that.
The liquid aspect of it is the same in the sense that they're both receipt tokens. It's like, imagine, to take a TradFi analogy, imagine you buy a bond, whether it's a government bond or whatever, corporate bond. You get some sort of receipt that says, yeah, you own this, this bond, and then you can basically sell that receipt to somebody else. So the money that you loaned the government is still, with the government, but you have this receipt that is tradable.
That has its own value.
So it's the exact same thing. Even if there's duration risk on that bond, it can go up and down. It's a liquid asset that is tradable.
Sweet. So I was reading a little bit about EtherFi online before we went on, and one thing that kind of popped was that I think it's probably either the only or one of the only protocols that supposedly allows people to retain ownership of their private keys when restaking.
Yeah.
How does that work, and why is that important?
Yeah, so when we started the protocol, one of the things that was very important to us was self-custody. Which meant that stakers, because we built this protocol really for ourselves, and we asked ourselves, what are the features that were important to us as ETH holders and stakers? And
I have a problem. I have a solution.
Yeah, exactly. So the way the protocol is designed is that the stakers are the ones that generate the keys, and then that allows the staker to get their ETH back if they want to. Whereas other protocols are designed in such a way that the node operators, the people that are running the server, hold the keys, and for now that would actually allow them to hold the ETH hostage. That thankfully is actually no longer going to be a problem as of the next Ethereum upgrade, because it will. They're introducing a feature that allows you to force exit validators.
What's it called?
So without getting too far into the
weeds. Just to know what's the upgrade and what's the feature, so that we know what to look out for.
I forget what the latest upgrade is called.
Wait, we can check it out.
The last one. No, I forget what this one's called, but it's called execution layer exits. That's the feature. So it allows you to exit validators from the execution layer, from a smart contract action.
Okay, I'll look this up and I'll put it in the description for our listeners, because I feel like this is important. But yeah, cool. Yeah. So how, essentially, when people retain ownership of their private keys, I understand it that in the other situation, they're sending their ETH somewhere, whereas in this situation, they actually keep it. But then how do they actually stake it? What's the mechanism?
It's not that they keep it in a different way. It's that they're able to and sorry, we're getting into a bunch of all these technical details.
Go ahead.
Hopefully I'm doing an okay job of explaining
I'm asking about them. So.
Normally the way staking works right now is you generate your private key. It's called the BLS key. You generate your private key. Then you derive from that private key another key that you actually use to run the server that processes transactions on the Ethereum network, and this is called the validator key. And then you stake your ETH. You deposit 32 ETH into the Beacon Chain deposit contract, and that eventually will register that validator and allow you to run that that computer, that server. In order to get the ETH back, let's say at some point you say, all right, I'm done running, this server. I want to get my ETH back. In order to get it back, you have to generate what's called an exit transaction. And the only way that you can generate that exit transaction is if you have that validator key. Okay, so it's you need that key to get your ETH back. That's the sort of summary.
Right.
With other staking protocols, the only party that has that key are the node operators. So the people that are running the servers on your behalf. And the challenge with that is that there are certain ways that can end up basically resulting in your ETH being stranded or held hostage. You wouldn't have the ability to force them to give you back your ETH. And whereas with EtherFi, the way we design the system is you would. You are the only one that has that key, and so the node operator can't hold the ETH hostage. But with this latest upgrade that's coming, that will no longer be a problem. And so, I think that's a really positive development for Ethereum.
Yeah, definitely. You know what makes me really curious about this is why this wasn't done initially? Because I think Ethereum, the merge was on the 15th of September 2022, if I remember correctly. So that's when it transitioned to proof of stake, right? And I was wondering with all of this staking that's been going on, people were talking about it even before that date. Why are we only now getting to a point where we have staking
and you
can retain your credit clears? Okay. So it just takes time to get there.
I mean, I think it was just complexity. They chose for a simpler implementation, and now it's this feature is going to become available to everybody.
Right. A little bit of a tangent, but I was reading about solo staking as well, and I know that if you're doing that just on the actual Ethereum network, that's quite taxing. That's kind of hard to do because you would have to be an incredibly big holder to, I guess, have some kind of chance. I think. I'm not sure if I'm right there. But I was reading that EtherFi also provides opportunities for solo staking. Can you break solo staking down and tell us what's up there and what people can do with solo staking?
Yeah, so solo staking is very important. Solo staking basically means instead of delegating your ETH operations, your ETH server operations to somebody else, you actually run the node yourself. So it's basically individuals. In theory, this is what it's meant to be. Solo staking is individuals running computers either in their homes or businesses, all distributed all over the world, rather than them, delegating that task to a third party. So that the reason that's important is it does add a layer of robustness to the network. It makes it far more decentralized and democratized rather than it being concentrated in a few large data centers, which is kind of unfortunately where Ethereum, to some extent is now. Last I checked, something like over half the network was based in just two data centers.
Oh, that's not good.
One in the US, one in Germany. Yeah, it's quite. I mean, it's really bad if one of those data centers goes down.
That's the opposite of what we want in blockchain. The exact opposite.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Bitcoin, has similar problems where just a couple of the large mining pools control most of the hash rate. So this is a real problem. I mean, I think having more solo stakers is super important. And so we started this program called Operation Solo Staker, which helped more people come online and get computers and tech support to be able to run Ethereum nodes. We're planning to invest a lot more into that program, and in particular to make it so that restaking is accessible to solo stakers. Because right now, restaking is basically not accessible to solo stakers at this point, because it's just, there's a lot of complexity and overhead associated with restaking. So that's something that we're planning to invest a lot more into. I'll leave it at that for now.
Okay. Are you planning, this is more of humanitarian comms question, but do you have any idea of what strategy you want to use to, put out some educational material, some outreach? Because I feel like there's actually a lot of people with the potential to be a solo staker who just either haven't thought about it or just don't know how.
Well, there's a bunch of technical engineering work that has to happen in order to facilitate this. Because normally restaking requires you, if you're running an Ethereum node, there's a lot of overhead associated with restaking because it requires you to run not just the Ethereum client, but the client's, the way restaking works, right, is you're providing economic security to a bunch of other crypto economic networks, right? So providing security to Ethereum means running the Ethereum client. Providing security to restaking services requires running their clients. And so you can imagine a scenario where someone, like an individual with a computer, under their desk, would be, that's running just one Ethereum node, would be required to run, I don't know, like 10 or 15 different clients, which is just an administrative nightmare for a person. I mean, it's like almost a full-time job to keep these things active. But even more so, it's not really practical, because like these various networks wouldn't be able to like apply the resources to provide tech support to like one random guy somewhere in a random country that's running this node. So restaking right now is really just not accessible to solo stakers. It's just not practical for them to do that. So the work required to make it practical is, first of all, making it possible for them to building software that makes it more easy for them to run these clients, or allow them to easily delegate the non-Ethereum client portion to other operators, and for them to register themselves as under a sort of an umbrella organization of solo stakers to plug themselves into these other restaking services. Again, I mean, that's a lot of like in the weeds detail, but hopefully that makes sense. The basic idea is we want to make restaking accessible to solo stakers. Like that's what we want to do, and there's a bunch of like technical work required to before that becomes possible.
Yeah, I just feel like, I guess my question was more focused on like not even on the technical work, but on the actual outreach, because you can have an amazing opportunity, and if people don't know about it or understand it, they'll completely block.
Lots of people want to do it. I don't think that's even like, I don't even know what the numbers are now, but I mean, we've had like tens of thousands of people apply to be solo stakers. So there's an unlimited demand. There's less than 10,000 Ethereum nodes out there, I think. There's basically unlimited demand of people wanting to run Ethereum nodes and being willing to do the work to do it. The issue is like, again, like the software has to be written, the business models need to be developed. Like there's a million things to actually, and honestly, nobody's working on this right now. Like nobody that I know of is working on allowing restakers to participate, allowing solo stakers to participate in restaking. It's actually kind of crazy, like that. It's there's about $20 billion worth of ETH. It's a significant percentage of ETH that is now enrolled in restaking, of staked ETH that's enrolled in restaking. I think like 10%, 20%, something like that.
That's a lot.
That's
a lot, especially if it's 20%. But it makes sense, because like if you're like you hold an asset on a proof of stake blockchain, you should be staking it, because otherwise you're just not doing yourself a favor.
Yeah, sorry. So the specific metric is 20% of staked ETH is now enrolled in restaking, which is a lot. Like that's a very material number, and it's going up. It's still growing up pretty fast. And again, that 20% is completely inaccessible to solo stakers. And that's really bad. That's imagine that 20% turns into 50%. Now you've got like 50% of the network that is inaccessible to the average Joe. Stakers. And that is
that's the opposite of the point.
The opposite of the vision. Yeah, exactly. I mean, Vitalik and obviously the folks at the Ethereum Foundation, the early people, like this is the exact opposite of what they intended.
Well, the good news is Vitalik's a smart guy. He'll figure it out. If you guys with you guys, there'll be a solution. I'm sure he'll just be like, oh no, this can't keep going.
No, the solution is very doable, and I don't want to say it's simple, but like, I know exactly what needs to be done. So it's really just a matter of like putting the engineering resources to doing it. And I mean, really within the next probably month or two, we're going to start. We're going to call out actually a call for proposals for people to build this implementation to facilitate solo staking participation in restaking. So it is coming. So probably by the end of the year, we'll have some sort of democratization of this thing.
Oh, good. So we're practically there. Like, I'm glad that somebody sat down and is like, oh no, we're going to build this. Like, if you don't, we will. It's really smart.
Everyone is so focused on the economics of the hype around restaking that I think there hasn't been enough interest in the solo staking part of it.
I mean, I guess so, because also I think if you're a solo staker, it can also feel like you don't have a voice. Like, you can go and like post on Twitter and stuff, but like, you're one person after all, whereas like all these other organizations, and like they're just bigger and they're louder. So I do understand where like there's this big problem with the democratization of restaking, but like we just don't hear people's voices loud enough. So it's good to have like a company or like an organization that's loud enough to be like, let's talk about this now, and then let's build it. I love the do the work mentality there. But you said, oh God, you mentioned something that completely slipped my mind. Oh well, I'll probably remember later. So
sure.
I wanted to ask like a little bit of a spicier question, if that's okay. I know that the SEC declared everything besides Bitcoin a security, and that includes Ethereum, obviously. So like, how did that affect your business in any way? Is there any specific way you would approach things if Ethereum is starting to be treated very strictly as a security?
I think they recently dropped the suit against the Ethereum Foundation, and so I mean,
did they?
I mean, the SEC is such a shit show. Yeah, I mean, I'm not
like a little pancake. It's like flipping
the opposite
over
of an expert in this thing. I think the risk of Ethereum, the fact that they approved the ETFs, the fact that they dropped the suit against the Ethereum Foundation, it would be very surprising to me and to others probably if ETH suddenly got declared a security. I think that's extremely unlikely.
Does it confuse you, like with the approval of the ETFs? I feel like that kind of snuck up on me. Were you expecting it, and like what were the signs?
To lots of people.
I feel like it happened overnight.
I think everybody was surprised.
Yeah, so it wasn't just us.
I mean, I'm sure people on the inside, had some idea, but that really surprised everybody. So anyway, I think ETH is however much value we put into the opinions of the SEC, they have anointed and said that ETH is almost certainly not a security.
Almost certainly not.
I think
I love it.
Yeah, I think though staked ETH, I don't know if especially liquid staked ETH, I don't know that it's as clear. It should be, because if you just think about mechanically what's happening, like if ETH isn't a security, then staked ETH is certainly not a security. I mean, it wouldn't make any sense, in my opinion.
Supposedly it's the same thing. So supposedly like the underlying asset, it's not logical. No.
Yeah, and then liquid staked ETH is just a receipt token for staked ETH, so that would be weird. And then there's another whole other layer on top of it around restaked ETH. So there's lots of like components that are still, I would say, in the gray area. The way we deal with that, the different companies, do different things. The way we deal with it is we aggressively try to block. We first of all, in our terms of service, we say that our protocol is not accessible to U.S. persons, and we aggressively try to prevent U.S. persons from participating in our protocol. And based on our data, I think we actually do a pretty good job of that. Those are the things that we're doing. We basically just try to we want to be compliant. We want to be a good actor in this space. If someone tells us that in their jurisdiction they don't like what we're doing, or even just doesn't give us clarity that what we're doing is fine, then we're not going to play games. We're not going to operate in that jurisdiction. So
in all fairness, it's the same for us. We're trying it's the same. Like, if you have uncertainty, you're just like, sorry, clients, but we can't do this if it's not legal.
Yeah. That's right. Some people are more fast and loose with the their willingness to take those types of risks. But we try to be, as I said, we're trying to be compliant and a good sort of citizen, do things the right way. We have our foundation and DAO and labs company, and separation between those. So there's certain ways that you're kind of supposed to set this up on the advice of lots and lots of expensive lawyers, and we try to do that. Whatever the rules are, we're following the rules to the extent possible.
It's so incredibly reassuring to hear that, knowing what it's like for us at Nexo as well. We have a huge legal team, and they are just working their asses off. And we have lawyers and consultants from all over the world for every jurisdiction, and it's such a heavy process, and I can see how these people have to think about everything and how complicated it is. And they're trying to set it up in the way it's supposed to be set up, but sometimes it's literally instructions unclear, and they're just kind of we'll do our best with the instructions we're getting and the regulations we've got, but there's only so much certainty we can give, given the fact that the regulators haven't put their cards on the table yet. So it's frustrating, and I feel like, especially coming back to the US, it's I don't think they're doing themselves a favor in being so unsure. And so, they kind of go 3 steps forward, 1 step back with regulation. And I think that's confusing companies, and it's chasing companies away. Sometimes they're actively trying to shuttle us out, but then other times I feel like companies are just leaving. That's what we did. We were just we can't, we won't actually take this risk. So we're going to measuredly, scale out. But
depending on what happens, I guess, with the presidential election, I think that might change. I mean, it does seem like Trump is a lot more friendly to crypto. I mean, this is a point that's been made lots and lots of times, is that crypto can be a mechanism for the U.S. to dollarize the world, which is to a large extent a major advantage for the U.S. because it effectively allows them to print dollars
globally, essentially,
send them to the world, and then people send them,
to keep the dominance that they have right now, and they're completely missing it.
Yeah, exactly. It's it's a point that's been made lots of times, by crypto folks, that the U.S. is has this golden goose and an opportunity, and they're just stupidly squandering it. But it does seem if Trump is in fact elected, it does seem like there's going to be a bit of a change.
Yeah, I don't know. I had this conversation with my dad yesterday, and he is of the same opinion as you, that Trump might actually be good for crypto. But as a woman, I don't feel very okay with Trump. So, and not just as a woman, as a person, I'm uncomfortable with a lot of his opinions and the kind of policies he stands for.
Sure, yeah.
But anyway, digressing from that, I just want to say I did find the article about the SEC dropping the suit against the Ethereum Foundation. So I stand corrected. You were right. It was from 6 days ago, this one. So I must have just been sleeping under a rock 6 days ago. It just happens to me all the time. Anyway,
it's not precisely the same as saying ETH is not a security.
But
the combination of dropping the suit and ETFs, it would be really weird for them to say ETH is a security now.
It's movement in a different direction from where they were going. So I stand corrected, and I'm sorry. All right. So wait, we talked about the ETF, and I read some news that EtherFis, you guys saw so much interest when that was released. Can you talk about that for a bit? And what happened after? Because this was a while ago. How's it been since?
The ETH ETFs?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they're trading yet. At least I.
But on the news,
maybe they are.
When the news hit, I feel like you guys experienced.
We've had, actually a pretty consistent run up over the last, how long has it been? Since November. So almost a year now. It's been completely wild. We're the 5th largest protocol in crypto. We're about 6.5 billion in TVL.
Are you a little frazzled?
It's just been insane. Yeah, no, for sure. It's, I don't know that there's any other instance where something is ramped up to $6.5 billion that quickly, from launch to less than a year. Well, Eigenlayer, I guess, is an example of that. We're obviously riding their coattails a little bit. So that's just been completely insane. And, I think we, first of all, executed well and built a good product that people, really like. But we were obviously also the beneficiaries of the crypto market kind of resurgence and the narrative around restaking becoming, the narrative that kind of dominated the space. So we're just very fortunate that that's happened.
Yeah, it was just a response to the article, which I actually had it from previously pulled up. It says Ether ETF listing approval sees billions poured into restaking protocol EtherFi. So I was wondering whether that gave you a big boost. But from what I'm hearing, you've just had a lot of consistent growth. And I guess the media was just kind of like, they were just like, oh, let's put A and B together into this article.
Yeah.
Interesting. But
if you look at our growth graph, it's just like
still been going up.
Straight line for like a year. Yeah.
That's good to hear, actually.
The deposits are still pretty wild.
Well, it's nice to hear that people weren't purely just like EtherFi is great and then news and then just back to EtherFi is great. I'm glad that you've had consistency.
I mean, there's always something.
Yeah, but I feel like it's good to not have over exuberance. There's always something, and yes, you can definitely sell news. It's even a good thing, I guess. But it's good to know that it wasn't just the news selling, it was just a consistent growth overall. So that's pretty cool.
I mean, what we're proud of or what we're excited about, building is not just like a, staking, restaking protocol, because I think, for myself, I consider myself very much a product person. I want to build products that people can actually use day to day, rather than just this sort of very specific kind of technical service around restaking. And so our vision, our longer term goal, is to provide a suite of integrated services that make crypto and DeFi specifically accessible to normal people. And this is where I actually think we're very well aligned with Nexo in terms of our goals and objectives, and hopefully that'll mean we'll work closely together. But yes, we actually have 3 products now that are integrated with each other that allow users to stake, to invest, and then to spend their money. And we call these products EtherFi Stake, EtherFi Liquid, and EtherFi Cash. And so I think that's another reason why we've continued to see growth, whereas maybe some other folks in the category have, in some cases, have started to plateau, because our vision is broader than just, hey, stake your ETH and collect your rewards. We're actually trying to create something that ultimately becomes a utility for users, and that allows people who are less technical, less hyper financialized to participate in this economy.
Oh, so like me. I'm that person. I'm less technical, less hyper financialized, just curious and trying to participate in the blockchain economy, and struggling or failing sometimes as well. Never be afraid to fail. Done it so many times at this point. It's just so hard to learn. Okay, well, one thing I wanted to ask specifically, because you guys are really riding, the edge of that, restaking wave. What do you think is going to be the next big trend in Ethereum or in DeFi or in the space right now? What would you put your finger on? What do you bet on?
There's a lot of things I'm excited about, and I'll just say what I'm excited about, because I don't know, it's so hard to predict what the next big narrative is going to be. I mean, I honestly think we just got super lucky that restaking became the narrative, and we got a lot of growth out of it. But I wouldn't have predicted that, honestly. It felt like this very niche, technical thing. Anyway, so the things I'm excited about, I'm very excited about the RWA category, so real world assets being tokenized. The reason I'm excited about that is because it brings productive assets on chain. It's not just people speculating on, token prices, where it's essentially just driven by, new money coming into the ecosystem. Whereas RWAs actually bring in income streams, cash flows from productive activity on chain, and I think that's critical if the DeFi ecosystem is to grow beyond just being this sort of global decentralized casino. So that's something that I'm very excited about. And then consumer apps, actual consumer applications of crypto. And I think there's a few areas that we're seeing some really interesting work being done. So everything from art to gaming. I mean, those are things that have been around now for years on the blockchain. I think it's interesting. But even some of the stuff that we're doing around giving people an ability to deploy capital to spend crypto in real life, and giving them some utility for these assets that go outside of just as I said, sort of the speculative casino world.
Yeah, I feel like RWA is just like it's been big for years, but it's just not been, I guess, built yet. It's exactly like the thing with like the solo staking. I feel like everybody knows it's really necessary. Everybody knows it's going to be huge. It's just not been like built out and fleshed out properly. And I think it's a matter of time.
I mean, it's growing.
It is, yeah. But
I mean, it's probably grown like 10x in the last year. With projects like Ondo, I guess to some extent Athena could kind of be viewed as that. But it's grown a lot. Like there's now obviously like a lot of different mechanisms for getting treasuries, like bonds, government bonds on chain, to where that's like billions and billions of dollars have been tokenized. And then other asset classes like real estate, like commodities, are now starting to get plugged in. And I think that's, that is both exciting, and I think it'll lead to a world where crypto eventually becomes the default kind of launch point for new asset classes and new financial instruments, and it becomes like the default capital market of the global economy.
Yeah. I'm really excited about something that I know is never going to be trendy. And I'm really bummed about that because it's never going to be the next big thing in crypto. But I really want us to see, to use blockchain technology for like tokenization of, basically more like digitalization of documentation, because I feel like my adult life is just a bunch of people giving me pieces of paper and I need to choose which ones to hold on to. And I keep choosing wrong. And I really need like an identity wallet or somewhere where I can put everything and never lose it. I desperately need this in my life, but I know that's like a very not sexy application of blockchain, but I need this so much. I wish it was like something
I think it's going to happen.
I do too. I just think it's never going to be hot.
Makes a ton of sense. Yeah. It'll be, I think, a category that grows as crypto becomes more widely accepted and actually used. I think identity and there's even ways, I think, for coordination around like sensitive documents like medical records or other kinds of data that can be encrypted on chain. I mean, not to like nerd out too much, but there's lots of really interesting things you can do where information can be stored on chain and you can compute over that information without revealing that information to parties that you don't want. So things like proving your identity or being able to prove that a certain document is accessible without necessarily making that document public. These are actually like multi-billion-dollar industries off chain. The reason that these applications aren't widespread now is because because the sort of the hooks into the real world economy haven't been developed yet. And
exactly, yeah. And also, people are super focused on the money right now. I feel like people flock to where the money is, especially in crypto and blockchain. And I had a woman I work with from INATBA, which is a pretty big association that I'm working with right now. She is always like, we really need to differentiate blockchain from crypto, because I like crypto, but crypto definitely seems to obfuscate blockchain technology a lot, because people just, there's a spotlight shining on crypto and people are thinking about the money, but they're not thinking about the technology and what we could use it for, like RWA, which is also financial, like it's a crossover between the two. But she's always like stressing that. And I'm like, she's actually right, because we're missing out on some really good applications just because we're so focused on the money.
Yeah, I think I really believe, I agree with that like the amount of money flooding into crypto and the casino aspect of it is really more of a curse than anything else, because it has a tendency to starve many kind of real projects of resources and capital, because the focus becomes on like all these gambling things that are just much easier, that are much easier to finance, much easier to generate sort of a speculative return off of. So I think that is that's and I think to bring back full circle to regulation and SEC and all that. I think that this is one of the consequences of not having clear rules and having shitty regulations is that it prevents people from doing the real things and focuses all the energy and attention on all the gambly stuff that is happening in kind of offshore jurisdictions. Whereas alternatively, you'd have more of the real world applications being developed in regulated, properly run jurisdictions.
Definitely. So we're kind of up to the end of the episode. And I always ask my guests at the end if there's a specific message or something they want to leave our listeners thinking about right before we go off.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I'll say, and I've said this, before in other contexts, is that whether it's investing or building products or thinking where to put your time, generally the best approach is just to think about things long term. If you're buying something, then whether it's a crypto asset or whatever, think of it as like, all right, am I comfortable buying and holding this thing for 10 years? For 20 years? If I'm building something, do I think this is a thing that makes sense to build, for the long term? Is this something that's going to exist in 10 or 20 years? Thinking about things like that just honestly has a tendency to make decision making a lot easier. Then you're not worried about like trying to buy into some idiotic meme coin or whatever. A thing that's not going to be around in 5 minutes. You're focused on asking yourself and thinking about the right things, which is this a thing that actually makes sense, over the over a long-term time horizon? And then you're not worried about what's happening kind of as much on the day-to-day. So that's my advice for folks.
That's you're the second person who's told me that. I think it was Azim Khan, who's currently working with Morph, who was the same. He was just like, you got to think about it in terms of like a 10-year at least period of time. But yeah, I think that's good advice. And I think that also brings that sobriety to crypto and blockchain, that it's okay to participate in the space, but don't do it for the casino aspect. Like, yeah, by all means, have fun with dog with hat, like if, just for shits and giggles, but that's not the point. That should be your kind of like, I'm joking around and I'm playing, whereas the other thing is I'm intentionally investing, I'm intentionally exploring. It's a different thing. So I guess, like be intentional is like the vibe there. And so with that, I guess we can now end our episode for the day. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll catch you next time on the Social Block, possibly in a couple months after our little summer vacation. And thank you so much, Mike, for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.